Hello and welcome to Deft and Dorky. We're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons.
We will talk.
Oh,
We're gonna have the talk about Dungeons and Dragons.
the talk. If I
The
can figure
talk.
this out. There we go. Uh,
Now is it starting?
yeah, we're good. I just had some technical difficulties, but we're fine now. Um,
Yeah.
so this week, thank you. Thank you very
Does it have
much.
pick it up, by the way?
Yeah, it picks it up. So
Nice.
that's for everyone. They take away your
Wonderful.
privileges. This is why we can't have nice things.
Oh, I
Uh,
can still push the button.
Uh, this week we are talking about getting into D&D. This one is kind of going to be geared towards people who have no idea. Like they've just maybe heard about D&D but have never played, have no idea how it's played, that kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk a little bit first about the sort of barriers to entry for new players. And one of them is the rules. There are a lot of them.
There are a lot of them.
There's so many rules that even professional D&D players do not have them all memorized. That's how many rules there
No.
are. But
So called professionals.
yeah, don't let that discourage you if you're looking to get into D&D because you don't actually have to know all the rules. That's the
What?
upside.
That's not true. Listen, Isaac's gonna say a lot of things today, and it's all false. If you don't have every rule memorized, your game is going to suck and your friends are all going to hate you and leave you for the
Yep,
rest of your life.
that's how it works. That's so, or so I've been told.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, you don't have to know all the rules. It is definitely advantageous the more you know because it will speed up gameplay. Uh,
Or
and
you
if
just
you,
make it up.
yeah, you can absolutely just make it up as you go. The more that you know, the better it's going to be for consistency as you play multiple sessions.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, you can just whatever sounds good in the moment. You can absolutely just go with it. If you're
I
a first time player, it's probably a good idea to have someone who knows some of the rules be your DM. But again, it's not necessary. What were you
I
gonna say?
remember listening to like I really my foray was Dimension 20. That
Mm-hmm.
was what introduced me. Um and I remember like it was an after show chat kind of thing, and one of the players said to the other one, it's like if you've listened to half a season of what we do, you're ready to be a DM. Like they were just like, don't think that you have to know everything. You don't. Like, clearly. Like, I mean, they obviously are knowledgeable and professional entertainers and have made it part of their livelihood. But I think that's accurate. Like, okay, yeah, like you've got the hard part figured out. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the nitty-gritty stuff is so like, let's just go to the book. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't tell you half the things that any of the bard subclasses can do because that class, I am so uninterested in that class. Half the monsters in the manual don't give a damn about.
Half.
Like,
Jeez, there's like so many monsters I have never read the stat block for.
yeah, I
So
just
much.
I've never read the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide. I've read like 15 pages of it, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a slog too, by the way.
Yeah,
That is
it's a lot. All
so.
of the books that there are, the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual, are the three big ones that people use to sort of get into the game. Really, just the Player's Handbook,
And even
and
then, like the
even
basic
then,
rules.
like it's not necessary to just read cover to cover. You don't have to. You can
You know,
if that's your thing, but like it's kind of just the table of contents is pretty good for just like, oh, I want to know about
yeah,
this thing. You just turn to that
yeah,
page and read it real quick.
that's it. Oh, I mean, I would even go so far as to say like the basic rules are free
Yeah, the
for
basic the
anybody.
SRD. Yep, standard rule set.
And it's good. It's actually really good. Like that's what I started with. I was like, oh, this is actually super helpful.
Yeah, so you may be
I bought.
wondering, well, what's the purpose of all these other books?
What
It's
is the
just
purpose
more
of
options.
These other books, so many books, so much money you're gonna waste on this
Yeah,
hobby.
it's so there's rule set books which just give you more options to play, and then there's adventure books which give you an entire like setting and objectives and stuff to play into.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. Think as the adventures as like the rule set books are the console. The adventure books are the video game.
But you can write your own video game, and it's not that hard. It's fairly time consuming depending on how detailed you want to be, but it's not super difficult.
Yeah, because you better know exactly how this faction works and their like motto and their like, you know, if you don't have a system of government figured out, your game sucks.
If you don't know every government's tariffs, tax code,
You don't have like a very explicit agricultural trading system established. Your world, what is this? Shambles, paper thin. Um,
but yeah, you don't have to know all the rules. It's like we kind of said. You can make up a lot of them on the go as long as if you watch. I mean, even you don't. If you watch a couple episodes of some professional D&D players, you'll get the gist of it.
yes.
It's like
Yep.
something comes up that a player wants to do. Is there a logical ability check, which is just a rolling of a d20, rolling of a dice to see how well they do on it? If they're a logical one of those to make, then make it. And if it's something that they just like, I want to know what this place looks like, what color the wall is, you can just tell them. There's no check needed.
There is. So it's funny. I introduced a couple of our friends to D&D a couple months ago, and my favorite, like introductory, like what is D&D video was from Vox, of like all places, like and it was like honestly really good. It's 10 minutes long. Dungeons and Dragons Explained by Vox. It's from about 5 years ago. This is 2024 that I'm saying this. And it is surprisingly really well done. So not surprisingly, that's unfair. But it's really well done. Highly, if you're new and you're like feel some apprehension about starting, it's a great place to start. There's lots of other places too that you can look at, but so yeah.
Yeah, let's. There's tons of places you can start, and for me, it was similar to you. It was very much watching other people play and sort of figuring it out as I watched. But yeah, it can be daunting because not only are there there's so many rules,
Yeah.
but there's still a bit of a stigma on it as being a nerdy thing that people don't want to get into because it's too nerdy.
It is too nerdy.
If
Don't play it if you're not a
anyone
nerd.
who is in drama club, this is not too nerdy for you. Anyone who has if you were in drama club, this is right up your alley.
Stay away, because I might know you. I don't want to know anything that I'm playing with. Oh yeah, if you did theater and you enjoyed it in any way, shape, or form, you would freaking love this game. Like it's unreal how much fun this game is if you did theater.
Yeah, all the theater kids. I mean, by this point, I think all the theater kids know about this game already.
Oh yeah, and we're called thespians, by the way. So
My bad.
it's thank you, appreciate it.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is probably a good spring because I imagine a lot of our listeners like know D&D really, really well, but maybe for those of you that are newer-ish or just kind of listening because you're friends or whatever. But I do think this is a good pivot point where we can ask like what are some of the ways that you can like if you play D&D but you have friends that don't and you want to get them in on it, like what are ways to drag them in? Like what are other barriers to kind of soften their blow?
Yeah, it can be a tough sell.
Yeah.
Just because you're like, hey, you want to play Dungeons and Dragons? And they're like, what? No.
Oh, no.
Wait, it's not what it sounds like.
You want to come play some Dungeons and Dragons?
um,
Um,
yeah. What would be your pitch?
well, I mean, when you first brought this topic up, you're like, what are the barriers to playing? And for me,
Mhm.
it's just like people. Like
It's true.
finding people to play is so many people's problem with the game. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but for me, uh, animated spellbook, whatever his name is, his name doesn't bother me.
Z.
Yeah, Zbaz
Yeah, something. That's it.
animated. Ba, 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 ba. This is riveting. Zbasa, that's
There
his
you
name.
go.
He has, I'll have to find it. But he has one of the things that he mentioned that I just love is he's just like, you need to make it as one-time experience as possible. Like, you don't invite your brand new friends to play a campaign. You
Yep.
don't invite them to like build out an entire thing. Like, don't have a session zero with them. Like, because you're only going to do a one shot with them, and it's very casual. Like, hey, we're going to play some tabletop RPGs. Like, have you ever played Dungeons? and Dragons? We're just going to do like a one-time thing. If you want to come over Saturday or whatever, we'll, whenever you want. You got to get them hooked with a couple of like a series of one shots. Is how he kind of describes it. And he's just like, get them a pre-made character or make the character creation process as fast as possible, as dumbed down as possible. Get them into the game as soon as possible, and make it as like out of the box as possible, so that you
Yep.
can get in and get out in like 2 or 3 hours. And then if they want to play again, like okay, cool, same thing. Like I feel like with my group that I play with right now, like I don't know if it's going to continue, and I feel like one of the reasons that it's not is that we went from a one shot to like a longer campaign immediately, and I kind of wish I would have just done like, let's do another one shot, and then let's do another one shot, and like the adventures of Scrooge McDuck and the Bojangles keep having these singular episodic elements. Like I think
Hmm.
that's how you lure your unsuspecting victims in.
Yeah, and
They might not have continued anyway, but you know.
I've seen places where it's like suggestion is do a one shot, and then at the end of that one shot, like the main plot point is answered, but it asks, but in the morning, something else comes up, and you're like, well, that's all, that's where we'll stop. Hope you guys had fun, and then see if they want to come back for more. And if they do, use those same characters, and then
Yes.
it's a campaign of one shots with each
Yeah.
one hopefully ending interestingly enough to make them go, but what happens next though?
Borrow as much as you can from mobile app games. Get them like go into the psychology of it, get them addicted immediately, and that's how you ring them in, and then start making millions
There
off
you
of your
go.
friends.
Yeah, I think that
Pyramid scheme
that's
style.
I think that that's I mean a decent strategy. Also, if it depending on it depends on what you're trying to do. Like that is not what I did with you. I was like, "Hey, you want to come play D&D? We've got
Yeah,
this campaign that's going on. It's good. It's over a year long. You want to come play?"
that's true. You
Um,
want to make a level 10 character, whatever you want. Here,
yeah.
you should look at the wizard class. It'd be a good one to jump into at level 10.
Um,
That's not what Isaac did, but that would be the worst. Actually, a druid or a cleric would probably be the worst. But
yeah. Well, yeah, I think wizard would probably be the worst because not only do you have to choose spells, but then you have to choose of those spells which ones.
yeah,
Yeah. Anyway,
and you could do that every day.
every day. Yeah, the reason that I did that with you is because that's what we were doing. That's what we were playing, and I was like, "Hey, you might like this. Do you want to come play?" Um,
Isaac and I have a history too. I mean, like, if you're listening right there and you're like, how do I get my friends into this? And we've been playing video games together for 4 or 5 years that are high learning curve, steep barrier to entry games like Dota 2 and World of Warcraft and things like that. I think drop the reticence because your friend's going to want to play.
yeah, and I mean it's something that we've talked about before. Not all of your friends are D&D friends, and not all of your D&D friends are your regular other ways friends, and that's something
Yes.
you also have to figure out. some people just don't play D&D well together because they're looking for things that are too different. One of the main reasons I like to play D&D is for the RP aspect of the TTRPG, which is tabletop role-playing game and role-playing. For those of you who don't know. But yeah, being able to explore aspects of myself or of humanity on large through the lens of a character that I create is a big draw for me. It's super cool to make a character then and know how they're going to react to certain things, and then your DM throws something at you and you react, just out of, while you're in the headspace of your character, act a certain way out of reflex, and then get to go back and look at it later and be like, was that my character? Was that me?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's great for me.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we joked about theater kids, like that was my undergrad. Like, just if you haven't done it and you're into this kind of stuff, like that feeling of like experiencing a narrative and a story and the feelings, and like human beings have been storytelling creatures since the beginning, like this idea of connection and like relating to one another through narrative, like, oh, it feels so good to share those like experiences with other people, and to like, it creates a safe place to experience things like betrayal or doubt or frustration. You know what I mean? Like, it's true catharsis without consequence, unless you're a really big douchebag in your game. But, but it is. I mean, like I have a family, love them dearly. There's dynamics there or whatever. And it's kind of fun this campaign to explore themes of family, because that's kind of the central thread or motif of my character. And to be able to do that without, I'll say this too. These are probably not the things that you tell your friends to get them to come and play if they've never played.
Or maybe it is. Who
maybe
knows?
it is. Maybe it is.
It's exactly what they want to hear.
Yeah. Hey, you're going through a divorce that's really bitter and brutal. Come play D&D. Like it's a way to get it out of your system. We'll kill things.
We'll let you explore those feelings in a make-believe space where there aren't the same consequences.
Yeah, exactly. I start breaking down at the table awkwardly. All right. Well, next
he's in character. Leave him alone.
Yeah. Totally normal.
Totally in character. Yeah. What's do you have it like? What's what is another reason that you enjoy playing?
Yeah. Why play D&D?
Yeah.
It has been like, especially in today's age, there are like millions of means of escapism. Like, just this week, I made 2 goals. Like, I deleted a video game that I play by myself that has been super frustrating, and I'm making it a goal. I'm not going to play it for 2 months because it has been a means of escapism that is like not developing me. It's not. I spend too much time on it. So on and so forth. D&D feels like such a healthy hobby in escapism, because there's a social component involved, there's a creative outlet that's involved. It's very limited time wise. Like, if you're the DM, then maybe you can go too far with how much time you spend on it, but like, I don't play it more than once a week, whereas like that game, it was like every night. Like, sometimes I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna stay up another hour or 2 or 3. I have work in 6 hours now. Well, better go to bed. But I got to bed 2 hours ago.
Yeah, and you were saying there's a social component to it. There's a creative component. There can be a therapeutic component, like we were talking about. Yeah, and all those things can feel way better than most anonymity games on the internet.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And another reason that I like playing is exploring the worlds that come up. Like, one of the reasons that I first started getting into World of Warcraft is because I could like walk around in a real world and like explore it. Now, eventually, you explore every nook and cranny of that world, and it becomes less. You demystify it, and then
Yeah.
when that happens, it's like, oh, this is the place where you go to get the one quest or whatever.
Right.
That's all this
Which
part of the
was,
world is for. Whereas in Dungeons and
you didn't
Dragons,
get to drop.
yeah, I didn't get to drop. I got to reset it and kill it again. Oh boy. Um, Dungeons and Dragons, you can literally explore a world that you may never finish exploring.
Yeah.
And anytime you go to a new place, your DM can totally be like, well, this wasn't here the last time you were here. It's complete creative freedom with a world, which is, it's like a, if you were ever looking for a build your own adventure book that that had infinite outcomes. That is why that is a big reason why I really like D&D.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like, you have to let go a little bit too with that because, like, so I'm married. My wife doesn't game as much as I do. She's a little older. She doesn't mind it, but there's a generational thing there. And so sometimes we'll play games together, and sometimes she just wants to watch, which I think is crazy. But she'll get bored if I've got to go look behind the waterfall, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
she's like, you need to that's not where the plot line is, Brian. Like, advance the plot. I want to see what happens next. And I'm like, this isn't your movie. This is my game, and I want to get every collectible for the achievement. But then I'm like, nah, you're right. Like, let's move this along. Like, D&D is exactly the opposite of what you were describing, because it's like, hey, like, you're gonna make choices and you're gonna leave things behind, and like, we don't get to go back to whatever that is because it's not gonna happen. Like, that's kind of the thrill of it, is that your choices will have consequences and matter, and there's no quick save. You know,
Yep.
there's no retconning. I mean, there's probably occasional, but like, you make your decisions and they are permanent and lasting, and it's thrilling. It's kind of weirdly like, Jesus, take the wheel. You know what I mean? Or whatever your god is.
Yeah,
Whoever it is, take the wheel.
it is, it's cool to, because yeah, in like a video game, you're like, oh, I'll choose this thing, and they're like, oh, that was not the outcome you were looking for. Oh, okay, well, I'll just open my save game file and go do the other one.
Oh yeah.
And it's cool to not be able to do that, because and also the thing in video games is like, when you're looking at like a dialogue thing that you can choose what thing you want to say, and each one of those is going to have some kind of outcome. Whereas for me, when I'm playing some of those games, like, I don't want to say any of these things. This is not what I feel like my character would say at all. None of these things. And in D&D, you
Oh
can
yeah.
say what your character would say, and it will get filtered through through the DM's brain, and not a computer going, oh, well, he chose option 3. That means
Hmm.
outcome 3. And that is something that I really like. It's just very satisfying.
Super. It is like goofing around with your adolescent siblings. You know what I mean? Like, it's returning to like popsicles on the back porch and like joking about scenarios. Like, it's the same thing. It's just a little bit more of a scripted kind of environment. Like, it's just
Hmm.
being able to say and do things and just like, what would be funny is if in this we did this. And it's just like, yeah, you can do that. There's so much freedom. And it's just like, it is like, to your point, it's like, I think it would be really cool if Master Chief or Geralt or Mario or whatever were able to say, like, you know what, princess, suck on these nuts. And it's like, yeah, you can do that.
You
You can
keep getting
finally
captured, and
do
I'm
that.
tired of it.
Yes, exactly. Like, free yourself. You know what I mean? Enough with this like patriarchal nonsense. Like, you are a strong, independent woman. Anyway, it is cool. It is like if you've got a mind for it and you just like to let it wander, like D&D is a great outlet for it because you could just do those. I'm like, hey, what if we do this? It's just so choice.
It's the best.
It is the best.
It's so fun to watch like new players too. When they get that, they go through like a sort of an arc, right? The brand new
Yeah.
players don't understand what they can do, and therefore they don't, or what they can't do, and therefore not don't understand what they can do. So they're very
Mhm.
tend to be very timid and just like, okay, what do I do next? And you're like, okay, well, you can attack if you want to, or you can try to talk to this person, and you sort of give them a bunch of different options. And then they go through this period where it's like, oh, I can really do anything,
Yeah.
and then they start doing like things that are outlandish, and then you have to like reel them back in with in-game consequences, like, oh, you killed all the guards, this town hates you now, you can't come
Yeah.
back.
That's not gonna work out for you, my guys. Yeah. Yeah, there's a like I feel like because it's a game, like people really come into it with when you like take a drink of something and someone tells you, "Oh, that's Sprite," and you go for a swig and it's actually salt water, like that prank. Like telling people that come to it, it's like, "Oh yeah, do you want to play this game called Dungeons and Dragons?" It's like, "Oh, I've played games and I've heard about this." So, like if you get them in, like they're operating under the assumption that it is a game in the sense that they've played games their entire life. And D&D, like I wish we had a different name because it's not. It is the true definition of play. It is like play like children play. Like
Hmm.
it is play. If you've ever like really studied performance, if you've studied this idea of play, if you think about like play therapy, like it is play in the truest sense of the word, not rigid structure like on your turn you're allowed to do these things. And yeah, the combat component of D&D does have those limitations, but like the overarching tabletop RPG experience, I won't speak to anything other than D&D because that's all I know, but like it is this free form, like it's almost like this, like, hey, I know that I've invited you to come over and quote unquote play D&D. You need to know that there's not a box, there's not a very specific rule set for over half of the game, depending on the game that you're running. And you need to let go of the idea of what can I do and embrace the idea of like what can't I do?
Yep.
Because like that is the list you need to be thinking about. Like
Hmm.
what can't I do? Because that list is very, very small. And as long as you obey that list, you're fine with everything else.
Yeah, and almost I would say go into the mindset of what would my character do, knowing that it's like you a lot of times when you play a video game or something, and like I've sort of said before, you get to a point where you have to make a decision, and it's a binary or trinary option, and you're thinking, well, I don't want to do any of these. In D&D, you get to any situation, and there's infinite options for you. You can do, well, this is what I think my character would do. I think my character would punch this guy in the mouth and ask him, a direct question. Or I think that my character would shy away from this and try to get out of the situation by just sort of slinking down and hiding in a corner and then leaving. You can do that. It's so open and free form that it can be misleading to say you can do whatever you want,
Right.
because that makes people think that they can manipulate the rules. But the thing is that there aren't hard rules for most of the situations in the game. So when you say you can
Mhm.
do whatever you want, it's if you what would you do if you were in this situation? Don't give me a, oh well, I think that the rules mean this, so I would do it this way. No, don't do that. Just think about what you would do in that situation if you were this person and confronted with this problem. How would you deal with it? And you can describe to your DM that process of how you think you would deal with it, and your DM will hopefully give you a like an ability check to make or an outcome from the
Yeah.
choices you made, and then you can go from there. It's It's super great.
It really it is like that's another thing, like another good reason to play the game. Like it's fun, you get to have a lot of free fun, like all this kind of stuff is so accurate, but like it is a very low stakes opportunity to get around a table of like-minded people and agree upon a way to like engage with something that doesn't matter. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it's kind of a cool way to practice harmony, you know what I mean? Like a miniature utopia for 2 to 3 hours or whatever it is. Like which sounds really dumb, but like there is such a rewarding feeling of symbiosis there, you know?
Yeah, especially when it really clicks.
Yeah, totally. Like when you're all kind of like, yeah, we're coming together, we're playing this game, and it's working the way that we want it to be, you know? So it's just
Yeah.
it, finding your people is so rewarding. Finding the hobbies that you can share is so rewarding. And D&D, I suppose, is just another one of those. But it's one where you're not. It's a collaborative building effort. You know, it's not just you and your three friends watching a football game and reacting and absorbing. Like it's you and three friends that like to. It's much more akin to like, oh, we like to sculpt together, we like to paint together, but like the same piece of art, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the whole idea of yes and, which for if anyone doesn't know, it's so there's this idea of yes and in mostly used in improv and theater, where if someone says something, instead of saying no that didn't happen, you say yes and you add your own thing that also happened in this story that you're both telling. It's a collaborative storytelling device. And that's very much a D&D thing. Not always will it be able to be used, but that's like the basis for it, I feel like.
Mhm.
And there are some instances where, you know, if a DM has built a world with clues and things for you to find, not always is the DM going to be able to yes and you, but they may be like, no, but, and give you something else to go on.
Right.
And this kind of leads me to my next point about why I enjoy D&D is that if you've ever watched a show or a movie and been so into it that you're like, man, I wish that I was in this world and could manipulate things just to, because it looks so cool.
Yep.
That's what you can do in D&D.
Oh yeah.
You can get into a world and be an active participant in the story of that world. That is very rewarding for me.
Oh yeah. And let's say that like the writers and producers like ruin it for you with the final season or whatever. Be like, nah, dog, we're taking this a different direction. You're all fired, and I'm taking over it because you really can. Like, if you want to like, I don't know, like it exists now. Like Star Wars has its own IP and all these really cool video games that you can like play, but there is a limitation to them, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to find some like-minded people to spin the story with, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can 100% make your own like fan fiction mini universe of Star Wars, and you can sort of you'll have to rewrite some of the rules so that they sort of fit within the Star Wars universe, but it's
Sure.
doable. I mean, there
Absolutely.
are already RP games that do this. I don't know of any that use specifically Dungeons and Dragons rules, but it's a similar deal. And
Yeah, I'm curious.
you can totally just be like, okay, I want to play the role of Luke Skywalker, and and then you can go like someone else can play the role of Han Solo, and you can totally go on your own little adventure, and it's super great, and it's all just collaborative storytelling. It's great, um, and it's it
I got
the what?
Oh, no, no, I was like, in fact, if you're curious about it, like I just Googled like Star Wars TTRPGs and like there's a bunch of articles on like recommended ones. The first thing that popped up was a subreddit, like what is the most popular best Star Wars?
Yeah, there's
Uh,
for every IP, I'm sure there are systems that have already been made. I know that there are some for Star Trek. I have not looked into them, but I know that they exist. Um, but yeah, that's that ability to just tell a story with your friends, essentially. Like if in it, a lot of we've talked a little bit about this before. A lot of the world building will tend to fall on the DM, so the DM generally is going to have the most work, and the DM is just for, I guess, if you are new to Dungeons and Dragons, you may not know specifically what their role is. They're there to sort of referee and try to make the rules fit what is happening. Try to be fair about everything, because even within the standard D&D rules, there's going to be some conflicts with the way people interpret rules. That's why there's a whole section in like Reddit and stuff that's called RAW, meaning rules as written, where people try to interpret the rules specifically as they are written and not take any creative freedoms with them at all, but you can do whatever you want with the rules. But yeah, there's just so much you can do with it, and it is, especially the RP is what I was going to talk about. The RP can get a little bit, it can be a little difficult to jump into, sort of being vulnerable in front of your friends enough so that you can take on a persona that either isn't yours or only has aspects of you that maybe are amplified. But once you get past that barrier, it's some of the most satisfactory time you can spend, at least for me.
Absolutely. I mean, there is like you find the right people. It is one of those things where it's just like, do you want to be around people that wouldn't accept that about you anyway? You know what I mean? Like if you're like, hey, we're playing this game, and part of this game is goofing around in this way, and then people are like laughing at you or making fun of you. Like, are those people you want to hang out with anyway? Like,
Yeah, it's a
you're
good
those
point.
people. But it is. I think that there is a lot of meaning in being able to kind of let go with other people. Like as adults, we don't have that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't, and I think that that's wrong. I think that that's like a societal hindrance that we have, where it's just like, oh, we're so locked into things, like we give up the idea of cowboys and robbers or whatever, that we would always do as kids. I mean, like this is my, this is what I do. I work in like career counseling and stuff like that. I There is this concept of the idea that career is a lifelong thing. And it starts when you're like 3 or 4 because you see these things and you play banker, you play policeman, you play firefighter, right? And it's like that dies at some point because you settle into academic advisor, which is what I
That's what I
am.
played when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
Today I'm
Right?
going to be
Nobody,
the academic advisor.
I'm going to tell you what classes to take and why you'll never be a doctor and you should give up on your dreams. No, not what academic advising is. It is it's something that we give up. I mean, and it's funny because like, if you really want to get into like human psychology, it's just like, well, that's what sex is for adults. It's like that's where you get a lot of that out. But it because we feel so constrained by the stupid rigidity of our society that like, you're grown up, you can't do that anymore. Like, what a stupid idea. I'm a grown up, I can eat this whole cake if I want to. Like, that's the perk of being a grown up, you know what I mean? So I agree. Like, I think being able to just kind of like unshackle the fettered bonds of our cultural stupidity that hinder our ability to just be what we want to be. Like, and it's so what? Like, I did acting in college. I loved it. This is a fun outlet. I suck at accents. I am so bad at accents, and yet I'm DMing and I'm still whipping them out. And sometimes it's funny. Like sometimes it's like, oh, that was a weird noise that came out, and it's funny.
That's totally what this person sounds like. Just deal with it.
Yeah, none of us. I mean, like even this podcast and even what we do on Monday nights. Like, yeah, I guess it's on the internet, but like I don't think any of us have like presumptions that we're going to be the next anything. It's
Yeah.
just fun. It's a hobby and it's something that allows us to not feel like we're in the rut, you know?
Yeah. And for me as a DM on Mondays, writing writing and creating a story and a world like with things for you guys to discover when you discover them is very satisfying for me. And your players' willingness to discover them is big. It's big for me anyway. So having, I don't know, just having that there to do
Mhm.
is, it's really good is what it is. I don't know how to oversell it.
It is really good.
It's just
Oh.
something that's like it satisfies a lot of desires on my part of
Mhm.
wanting to do something creative that other people can appreciate. Because like I
Yeah.
said, we stream it and everything, and like there's a couple people that watch it pretty regularly, but like even if they didn't, as long as you guys are having a good
Mhm.
time, like that's that's a big deal for me. It's the one of the big reasons that it is the reason that I DM. It's one of the
Mhm.
big reasons that I play Dungeons and Dragons at all.
Mhm.
Um,
It's so I no, I was it's a bit of a pivot, but I
okay.
was thinking of two other small reasons. So like I've talked about this with my brother. He has kids. We both have kids, but he's got kids and he's in that phase of life where they're like old enough that it's like, okay, we could start teaching you lessons and that's important for us to do. So he's always thinking about that, right? Modeling
Okay.
good behavior. They're not past the point of no return, you know. They're like, okay, it's time for us to instill good values. And so he says that
That's
he's like, I want to
hilarious.
get my kids into D&D, and he's like, it teaches really good lessons. Like it teaches about consequences for your actions. Like there are too many, shows and video games today that are about, you know, being the omega superhero where nothing goes wrong. And D&D is a good opportunity to be like, oh, your character died and that's okay. Like you made a decision that led to this and now you're in a tricky spot. Like it is a good learning environment for like that's how it goes, bruh. Like that's the world. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. Like I hadn't really thought about it that way. He's also one of those psychopaths that play this game and he's like, I don't care if you kill my character, I kinda want it. It's like, oh, okay. That's weird, Jason. Um, but no, I'm just kidding. Much love. I think he's just excited about the experience. Both of my brothers, by the way, have expressed that sentiment. They're like, by the way, we don't care if we die. I'm like, okay. Because like what other game allows you to do that? So anyway, the other thing that I thought of, and this is not why you should play. I mean, maybe it is, but like it's not like what I think a lot of people would put at the top of the list. If you I think about a lot of people that when they get into this game, like Isaac, you got into it at how old?
Oh, jeez. 30, I don't know, 35, something like that. Is
Same,
that right?
like definitely 30, not 35. I'm not even 35 yet. Uh, but 30, 31. Most people get into it though in their youth, right? I mean, like you'd think that maybe not, but
I think that's
if you
changing, but
are,
I think that certainly has been.
yeah, that is such a challenging time of life when comes to like feeling comfortable with yourself and accepting your identity and fleshing out your identity. Like there are a lot of really heartwarming stories of people that got into D&D and it allowed them to experiment with parts of their identity that they're not proud of or like not really fleshed out or whatever. And like obvious ones come to mind, like, hey, I want to play a female character because it's D&D and I can play whatever character I want. And maybe in real life I'm dealing with those, like I'm going through those motions myself.
Hmm.
Um, but even then, like it doesn't have to be as poignant as like the fluidity of sexuality or whatever. It could be just as simple as like, I am really sad right now about, fill in the blank. Somebody passed away in my life, or like I didn't get this opportunity, or like I'm really excited about changing my career as a 35-year-old man, which is what I will be in October and what I'm thinking about doing. D&D offers a safe place to kind of like live out, though, like we talked about, like engaging in certain emotions or feelings or like narratives, but like live out ones that you're actually living and struggling with in a safe place. And nobody even has to know. I mean, like, oh, you're going to play a girl? I say, yeah, so what? You know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it is not a place for you to really push those things onto other people, unless that's like, if you've all agreed about it, like, whatever, like, do you, whatever. But,
Yeah, and
yeah.
that's that. Getting into that, you can talk about sort of lines and veils. If anything we've said is like, wow, I that seems too far for me. You can have these talks with your DM and your other players about what topics you want to not just you want to avoid altogether because they make you too uncomfortable to enjoy the game, or
Mm.
some of the topics that you don't mind if they are described but you don't want to like interact with them necessarily.
Yeah.
And those are all things that can be accommodated. You just have to find the right table. Finding the right table is
Ooh, good luck.
one of the hardest things to do. That's one of your barriers to entry, and like you already said, was people. But yeah, finding the right table, finding a group of people that are all going to be acceptant of what it is you are trying to do and want to do it with you. But once you
That is
find that,
another, yeah, that's good. That is another thing that I was thinking of. Like, D&D is a good hobby because it's so, we play once a week, and that being said, like, I can, like, the rest of my week is filled with like, I'm gonna watch a couple YouTube shorts about D&D, or I'm gonna read about it, or I'm gonna, you know what I mean? Like,
mm-hmm,
it doesn't have to be confined to that, you know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
So, um, I was thinking it'd be kind of interesting if we very briefly focused on the negative.
okay,
Um, why why you shouldn't play D&D. This is like one of those like why you shouldn't move to Colorado list. Where it's like kind of semi-ironic or whatever. But
I mean, I guess the most obvious one is, and this is a thing in the D and D community, is that no D&D is better than bad D&D, and that
yeah,
comes from if you find the wrong table. If you find a group of people who are playing D&D, but they're playing for very different reasons than you want to play, that can leave a very sour taste in your mouth, and you shouldn't probably play. You should probably just
yeah,
either not play at all or look for a different table.
yeah. And all I mean, there's people that play it for different reasons, like, oh, we really like the RP element. It's like, oh, we really like the crunchy dungeon crawl element. Like, oh, okay, they're kind of two different things, so you might be bored if you're not doing the thing you want. There's also the wrong table in the sense that, like, oh, my DM is actually a bad person. Like, he's going through some stuff right now and is kind of a toxic entity in this, like, that's also the wrong table. Like, it can
Mm-hmm.
be as, like, hopefully, if it's not the right table, it's for a reason, like, oh, we just kind of played for different reasons. Like, hopefully that's the reason it doesn't work out, because
Yeah.
that's at least like, well, we're all still good people to each other. But you hear those nightmare stories, and it's like, ew. Like, why
Yeah.
would you want to spend your free time with those people?
And to harken back to what we were saying before, not all of your friends are D&D friends.
Hmm.
Just
Oh
it's kind
yeah,
of the way it is. Um, just because they're not going to be looking for the same thing in the game that you are, or that you just don't gel with them in that environment or situation, and that's fine. You don't have to play
yeah,
D&D together. it's and
yeah,
that's it's almost like a relationship, because if what you're looking for is the ability to be vulnerable and role play these difficult things in your life to sort of that you're going through to sort of have a catharsis over them, and the people that you're playing with are teasing you about those emotions, then yeah, that's not that's not what you want to do necessarily. And they could
no.
still be your friends, but just
Yeah, totally.
not your D&D friends, or not friends that you want that are that close that you would ever talk to them about that kind of thing anyway.
Yeah, like I love the people that like I brought in for this. I think we played 4 sessions, One was a one shot, and then we played three or four of this like mini campaign. It was Lost Mines of Phandelver, and it just kind of petered out, and that's okay. Like I love them; they're awesome. They come over, we have dinner together, we play other games. We play a lot of like they love games, but like D&D is a different. It's not a. They love games in a box with rules, and that can be one and done in an evening.
Yeah, I
But
mean, and there's nothing wrong with liking the restrictions of rules in a game either, but that's just
totally,
not. I mean, and I guess you can do that with D&D, but I feel
no.
like that is certainly not the purpose of me playing D&D.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say you shouldn't play D&D if you haven't like if you don't have the it is a I'm reticent to say this. It is just a little bit of a commitment. It doesn't have to be. It can be a one shot and you could just do series of one shots with your friends.
Hmm.
But like just don't play D&D if you feel like you have an inability to like express yourself and communicate with other people because like you've got to have like a social contract that needs to be a little bit more set up and established. Like you need to be able to say like this is why I'm going to do it or this is fun for me or like that's not fun for me. Or, like you got to be able to establish some of these things together as a group. It's not just like, "Oh, do you want to come over and watch the game?" That does a lot of it for you. But D&D asks everybody to at least be present,
Hmm.
you know? Like you got to engage to a degree. And so if you feel like you can't do that or don't it requires an element of being a decent human being because a lot of the game demands it. Like you can't check out like you can with a lot of other hobbies. You can have a bad day, of course. You can have a whatever. But like I guess what I'm trying to say is that you have to come to the table and be willing to participate. You know,
Yeah.
and if you're not in that headspace, or if you just can't like commit to that, like the other people around you might be super into it, and so it is a little bit of a like respect what they're bringing. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Oh,
And that kind of
I
goes
don't
back
know.
to finding the right table as well. There might be some
Yeah,
tables where you are completely disinterested from what is happening, but everyone else is super into it. And there might be tables where you are super into a thing and someone else is not really digging it. And
yeah,
if try to find those tables where you were super into it for the
mm,
majority of the time because that's when it's going to be more rewarding for you and it's going to be more rewarding for everyone else playing as well.
absolutely. And if it's not what you're liking, like you got to be able to express why, like articulate why and express that, because I mean, like as the DM, like I don't want my friends there if they're having a bad time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the group that I was just talking about, like it's not really been discussed, like why we've stopped playing. It just happened,
Hmm.
and they're not bringing it up. And I know because I'm like, hey, it's a hard game to get into sometimes, and if you're not really into it, that's fine. But like, these friends, they're great people. I would say that they are probably a little conflict averse, and so for them, like to even bring up like, hey, that was really fun, but it's not for us, would feel like conflict to them.
Hmm.
And it's like, I don't feel hurt in the slightest, but so I worry that what I said would be a slightly misconstrued because like there's a table for everyone and there's games for everyone. Like D&D is so flexible that it could be whatever you want. I just think that it is not. You'll have a DM that has put some time into it, and you'll have the other players that are there and having a good time. And if you are just not ready to engage with that, then like, hey, that's okay. Nobody's going to be really put out, hopefully, if they're good people, if you're not wanting to participate in that.
Hmm.
So,
Yep. And it's again just find the table that's good for you, and then if it's most rewarding when you can dive in.
Yes.
So if you're having trouble, like if you've gone to a session or two and it's just not clicking for you, then don't think D&D isn't the game for me. Just think this isn't the right table for me.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
if you've done that to a million tables and you still feel that way, then maybe D&D isn't the game for you. But
Yeah. I mean, like, it could not be a game that you like.
yeah,
That's
that's a
totally
possibility.
fine. But, you know,
It's just
it.
it's for if finding the reason that you want to play and finding people who have a similar reason to want to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people don't like games, and that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Some people also don't want to share those stories, don't want to tell those stories, don't want to be vulnerable. Not that you have to be vulnerable to play D&D, but it's just like that's what I'm trying to get at is like for those people that try several tables and it doesn't work out, like what are the reasons that it doesn't work out for them?
Yeah.
You know, why? Because they exist, and that's fine. Time alone can be one of them. Like if you don't have a lot of time, that's still okay. Maybe you can find some people that you play very intermittently with and just do short little one shots or whatever. But
Yeah. And when we say being vulnerable, that can be anything from some people feel vulnerable just when they're speaking aloud in front of other people. And
totally.
that can go as deep as like portraying another character, doing an accent. Those can all feel vulnerable for some people. Showing an emotion that isn't like laughter, I guess, is like the safe emotion, right, around most people. But showing an emotion that is not that, whether that be sadness
Right.
or being scared, just those tend to be the most vulnerable. But you don't have to go that far especially if you're at a table where it feels uncomfortable to do so. But
Yeah, and I mean,
I
like
feel like it is the most rewarding when you can do those things.
vulnerable can also just mean like allowing yourself to be known and knowing other people, like actually connecting, you know? So like if you're playing online, like close your tabs, like get off the internet and pay attention to what other people are saying, you know? Like be present and be willing to connect as one human being to another, which is another reason to do this game is that like it allows us to like cut the cord a little bit. It is funny, we play online. but
Yeah, and
but there is
go ahead.
no, there is a real opportunity. Like, okay, I'm gonna like when we play, I make it a very intentional choice that I have Chrome open for like two things, and it's my character sheet and maybe the stream. Um, I don't do the stream as often anymore. So, but like that's it, because like I don't want, you know, like I have committed to spending my Monday night for 3 hours doing something that is really rewarding. But if I'm on Reddit or if I'm, you know, dinking around on social media, that gets in the way of that. And it's also disrespectful to people that are there investing their time, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I'm probably going hard in the paint on this, but like you as my DM do a lot of work to make that game. And if I just check out, like I feel like that's a little disrespectful. And if somebody is like role playing and they're trying to have a moment to explore something, like that takes a lot of vulnerability to do that. And if I'm just like, wait, what happened? I I don't think that's like it's just like pay attention, dude. Like you just missed a beautiful thing, you know.
Yeah, and
But
they're like for people with like ADHD and stuff that have a difficult time focusing on stuff, there are a million videos on better like ways to play D&D if you have ADHD. Like some people just suggest you have some sort of like fidget tool or something. I don't know. I don't have ADHD, so I can't speak to any of those things. But the more you can like, it sounds bad, I think, but the more if you are called on, if you are ready to answer, the better it's going to be. Especially for if you have someone who's trying to who's especially if they're being extra vulnerable with like trying to have their character interact with your character about some deep-seated feelings that their character has and maybe the player has as well, and then you know are caught off guard and have no idea what they're talking about, that moment's gone.
Yeah, totally. And they won't feel like bringing it up again.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that accent again if they laughed at it. You know.
I've done the accents again after they've been laughed at.
Oh yeah. But not everybody will
Commitment.
feel. Yeah. Yeah. Not everybody will feel that. But I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, that's
Uh,
my
Y'all
our
should play
pitch.
D&D.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's the best game.
It's so fun. It's the best game. It is the best game. So
So yeah,
it does have a bit of a learning curve, and it can definitely have a barrier to entry. But if you can get over them,
yeah. So
good time.
if you've been listening, thanks. If someone sent you here to listen to try to convince you to play D&D, then we hope that you will find it interesting. But either way, thanks for listening. Thanks for chatting with me, Brian, and we'll see you guys all next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.